Not ready?
Live.
Okay. Okay, this is the Finance Committee meeting for November 28th. And could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Knipp is absent. Mr. Morris.
Here.
Ms. Snyder
Here.
and Ms. Cheney.
Here.
All
Okay.
members are here except for.
Thank you.
Motion to excuse Mr. Knipp.
Did you call in?
Second.
I'd like to question this where we're excusing people who don't call in and announce they're not going to be here.
Sorry, bad habit.
I know, but we have people who don't show up on time, but we excuse them even though they haven't called and said, I'm going to be there when I'll be late. I think we need to reestablish when watching these meetings. People come in when they want, they leave when they want, unannounced. And that's just not proper etiquette for meetings.
So that's something that I think the council members should have a discussion of
Okay.
amongst yourselves. You can do that either, you can't do it as a group outside of a public meeting, or you can have that discussion in the public meeting. But you do have the rules of council
I know that's.
that are adopted at the beginning of the council session. You won't be doing that in January since we don't have a new council, but that certainly is something that you can have a discussion about.
I withdraw my motion.
Okay.
I'm not trying to be a pain, but it's
No, you're
not
right.
You're right.
right that we have people show up when they want and leave when they want.
You're right, Joe.
Everybody else is spending their time here. The meeting, we know what the time is. If you can't be here, call and say I'll be there at 6:15. That's, in this day and age, you
True.
can't communicate with anybody.
No, I'm paranoid. I got you.
Okay, so
Sorry.
okay, so there's no,
What?
I was like, maybe he did text me, but he
no
didn't.
excuse for David Knipp. So we'll move on then and set the agenda. Does anybody have any changes or additions for it?
Motion to accept the agenda.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Nobody registered to address the committee. We have the minutes from October 24th to approve.
Motion to approve October 24th minutes.
I can second it.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
I
All
was
right.
not here for that meeting, so I was not part of it.
I wasn't either,
Okay, all right,
I don't think.
okay.
Yeah. I did read them though. Okay, so we have new business. We have Mr. Pridenoff to talk about the financial packet.
Yes, just one moment.
Okay. And-
Okay. Very good. Okay, so. The right page here, sorry. Very good. Okay, so for the month of October fiscal year 22, the village had a combined bank balance of 3.5, just north of that, $1 million. Of that amount, just over $3 million can be found in the village's primary checking account. The balance resides in several village dedicated funds. Just to be aware, the major difference there between the combined bank balance and what can be found in our bank balance is about $500,000 now, as opposed to previously it's normally pretty close. That's the STAR fund. That was after we moved $500,000 into the STAR fund. So the village had 24 outstanding payments that totaled $77,000, just over. That includes, of course, payments to DPS. For the month of October, the village generated $86,000 in income tax receipts. That number was $20,000 less than October the previous year. But again, if you've been tracking for the last couple months, the village we had been ahead in our income tax receipts. So now we've caught up to where we're about 0.5% below collections of income tax receipts as compared to fiscal year 2021 at the same time. For the year, the village has generated just over $800,000 of general fund income tax receipts for fiscal year 22. That number is just $1,000 less than where we were in 21. That's meant to say, sorry, that's a typo. The village already did receive the second biennial disbursement of real estate taxes, so no change there. As for receipts, the village did receive 27 payments in October that totaled $769,000. It's only inflated like that because of the star fund. It's not really 769. It's really about 247, which is much more normal. And of that 247, 112 was from the fire levy taxes from Little Miami. So again, the real number there is just over $130,000, not 769. But that's how it appears on our bank statements. Again, for the year, the village collected $489,000 more in general fund revenue than in October of fiscal year 21. Again, most of that's the Star Fund. Top 5 payment payees for the month were Central Land Title Agency Company. That's going to be for the Crinus property, payroll, Atleta, DPS, and Rumpke. As for appropriations, the village general fund spend for the month included 80 cleared payments, just over $350,000. That is about $113,000 more than what was spent in October of 21. Again, the purchase of the bakery property is the main culprit there. The village administration will continue to monitor appropriation spend and make any adjustments deemed necessary.
Any questions, comments? Okay. Okay.
We have to do we make a motion that we accept this, or is that in the full council meeting?
I think
Well, the full council needs to accept the report. Once it's given, you guys can recommend accepting the report if you'd like.
Okay,
Recommend we accept the report.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, then we move on to appropriations.
Before we do that, are you gonna go over the ARPA funding in this meeting, or are we doing it some other time?
I'm sorry, I can't hear
Are
you.
we gonna go over the ARPA funding in this meeting, or are we gonna do it some other time?
That's why there's a report there this evening.
Oh, that's what this is?
Mhm.
Oh, thank you. I didn't look at it. Okay. So we'll move on to appropriations.
great. Okay. So you all should have received the appropriations. I went through this with everyone one-on-one, so we should, again, if you have any specific questions, happy to answer them and now at this point. The total balance, the total estimated balance for revenue for 2023 is just over $2.2 million in the general fund. Expenditures there is about $2.3 million. Again, that's significantly due to the creation of the new position of the full-time public works manager. Other expenses in there do include also the chiller replacement. So between those two items, that's where we're going to be dipping a little bit into the reserve, somewhere in the realm of about $80,000. There is included in the capital outlay $13,000 that could be used towards the kitchen if we decided to do some moderate renovations there. I think that the administration generally has felt that that may not be appropriate for 2023, although certainly I don't want to say that's the final word on that because that's the numbers. Those are the numbers. So that really is the breakdown in the general fund. I will be making a change just in terms of the way that we report the fire. We have to report the fire levy on its own separate page. So that just, again, the numbers are all the same. So if you look at where it says under expenditures, it says $550,000 right here under fire protection. That will fire protection other, that will receive its own page. Just on this report, it's pretty slight change. That combined with the severance payment of $105,956.58 will give us a approximately $26,000 revenue surplus for the year. And as long as we have DPS providing our fire services within that 5-year period of severance from LMFR, we will have that surplus. So that gives us a little bit of breathing room to figure out anything past 5 years. The police levy, you'll notice that they start with a little bit more of a surplus at $119,000 estimated for 2023. I'm recommending that we dip a little bit into that more than usual. We have consistently seen a surplus there. We started with about $4,000 back in 2016 or 17, and they've consistently built. They've been underspending in that account to where we are today. We balanced around $100,000 this year. Again, with staffing difficulties, that number went a little higher. So I'm just recommending to spend a little bit more into the police levy instead of the general fund for that. But again, still giving us about $113,000 cushion for the future. Again, the thought there is to have at least 6 months of expenses for the police levy, which is only about $246,000. So just under half of that for the future. But again, it's kind of arbitrary. We could leave it there, we could take it, but it seems to make sense to kind of have a cushion there. Moving on to the street levy, there is, again, I apologize, this is my first time presenting this, and every single person that I've sat with has picked up something. Lou also picked up on this. So the street levy starts with 1.4 million. Street construction, we will receive about 330,000 for the year 2022, and it'll be about that for 2023. The 2022, it's not an issue for 23. It's really just the way I reported 22. I have 810,000. That should be 410,000. And then of course the total expenditure shouldn't be 347, it should be 410. So it really doesn't change the math all that much, but just that is a typo. So we'll end the year with about 1.35 million. Next year, getting another 330 and spending about 953,000 for Elbrook. That's going to end us with about 730. So again, since they're not 780, it'll be about $730,000. Still a pretty nice reserve for future road projects. And again, the way that we've been doing a lot of our road projects where we are getting a loan for long, we have Vera, I think we're paying $20,000 a year for the next 20 years at 0%. I mean, with $780,000, we should be, or $730,000, we should be fine on that.
So all 3 road projects are in next year, is that correct?
Yeah, so
There's actually 4.
4, I guess.
right because
So we didn't do anything this year. So Elbrook's coming up for next year. Actually for this year, next year. And then we have Canterbury, Englewood, and Weehee.
Mhm.
So
Is Canterbury Englewood 2 projects? or
it's
one?
same project.
Same project.
And the reason being is that it's tied to the water main project that's going on in Sanibel. They wanted to do a complete redesign of that intersection after we had already paved it. And we were able to work with them to do this without tearing up that entire intersection, which would have cost us additional road monies. But Canterbury Englewood was 50-50, 50% grant, 50% 20-year interest-free loan. So that's our outlay. Same thing for Elbrook, 50-50. And then Elbrook, we are funding in whole. And then Weehee, we are funding in whole.
Weehee is full?
I believe so.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, 50-50, 50% sort of. And then Hamel will be 50-50 also. So after we complete Hamel in 24, my recommendation is that we sit out a year, do maintenance, and then we also have to go back in and take a look and see what our next 5-year plan is going to look like.
Right. So the difference is looking at Elbrook. So Elbrook, we have it at about $850,000. So the 953, that's going to include payments for Stover and Vera, which are all loans, as well as a Weehee. You do have Weehee as a full payout here. Weehee is a full payout, so I should add that.
So sorta is paying for half of that.
Okay. So we'll have to.
So I have to go back and take a look
Yeah.
at the
Okay.
contract.
I didn't realize that.
Because without the sort of funding, we wouldn't be doing Weehee.
Okay.
So this is not finance related, but we brought it up, the water main work on Lozannaville. Is Deer Park Silverton aware that's one lane that's gonna be probably for a while?
I have no clue.
So, okay.
We'll have to touch base with Danny.
Well, is Danny gonna be here tonight?
I don't know if he'll be here or not.
Okay.
It's the second meeting of the month.
I'll text you if I need to.
But otherwise, Canterbury is, again, $11,000 a year payment for the next 20 years. So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, that's just, it makes it a lot easier to do these kinds of road projects when we have those kinds of loans and such a hefty balance. So that's
Yep.
certainly helpful.
It's good.
So that is,
Well, and every dollar is spoken for. So we're watching that carefully to make sure that we don't overextend ourselves.
right. So that is,
So this round of projects is funded through the end of that levy, which is at the end of 2026.
But 2025, you could take a year off. Is that the year you're taking off?
I'm sorry,
2025, is that the year we're gonna pause?
2020, yes.
Okay.
so that's the end, that's the end of the road project. And now to just, so the final exhibit 3 is what it's called. Again, I didn't title these. I don't know why it's exhibit 3. It's the 4th page. But so you have the street construction, maintenance and repair. Again, dipping slightly into that balance. It pays mostly for service and really keeping the roads clear and doing all the stuff that they do. So then the DEA fund over here, that is probably going to be a higher carryover for next year. Just looking at projected, based on I think it was, what was the latest deposit we got from that? It was pretty hefty.
Just under 40.
Yeah, just under. I mean, that was pretty amazing. So so that number goes up. Again, these were all based on projections from a couple weeks ago already. So these will receive one final update, but that'll be next year once we close out year end. Other than that, again, it's just smaller funds here. And the last piece, of course, is the Coronavirus Relief Fund 2151, the ARPA money, which that is our next report.
I have a question. The Ridge Acres Community Condo Association, they have to fix that road, don't they? Or is that us?
That's our road.
Do we have that in the budget to do?
So I've talked to the engineer about doing some joint repairs on that street so we don't have to replace it. So that's something we don't have a number on, but that's likely something that we'll address during 2025.
Okay, good. I thought there were some rough places on it.
You know, that is a dedicated street, so
Okay.
it's ours.
Okay.
Any other questions on appropriations?
No.
Okay.
So,
So should we move over to ARPA?
Sure.
Okay. So this fun and colorful chart, so to speak, this gives us an idea of kind of how much money we've received from the state. Again, it's all federal pass-through money. The federal government sends it to the state sends it to us. So these two payments, one came in 2021, one in 2022, both in July, of about $187,000. So total fund was $375,000. Actual expenditures, excuse the typo.
So there's, before we get too far here, remember back in 2020 and 2021, there were several pools of money that we were getting. There was the CARES Act funding. We had 3 payments of CARES Act funding. That's where all of the PPE, the additional uniforms, a lot of the electronic equipment, all of that stuff was bought and paid for with that. And we successfully passed our audit of that when they did the audit in the spring. The ARPA money is the American Rescue Plan Act. This is the $187,000 payment that we got twice that has specific things that we're allowed to spend this on. So if you recall, I believe it was Resolution 2022-17, Council passed this year to take the standard deduction, which allowed us to declare anything that was under $10 million that we received in ARPA funding as a general expense. So what that did for us is it allows us to be able to use some of that money as replacement revenue if we don't find bigger projects to use it on. So things that you are allowed to use ARPA money on are things like communication, wellness for the community, education. There are a couple of things on here that we've done. So the employee stipends, the ARPA funding guidelines allowed for bonus payments to the employees for their work throughout the COVID pandemic. Those were paid out in December of last year. That was $40,000. The playset replacement, so we matched that with the $50,000 that we got from the county through regular COVID funding. So that was about $110,000 as a total project. The communication tool is the app that we would like to do. We've made the down payment on that, which is $10,332. This is the money that's actually been spent in the red orange area. Things that we had planned on using the money for that is unencumbered at this point. We've talked about doing lead pipe abatement on the private side. We've set aside $40,000 for that. LED street lighting qualifies for ARPA funding. Mr. Pridnoff put in some numbers on the side there. There's an investment of $111,000 that we will need to make up front to actually purchase and install the equipment, but it will yield a 17% return on investment after that's done. We've talked about doing Wi-Fi in the parks. We're waiting for some quotes to come back from Cincinnati Bell on that. We've talked about doing AED installation in the police vehicles. We've set aside $20,000 for that. The other $10,000 for the communication tool. And then the solar project is the project that's being done by several communities in the county. It really hasn't gone anywhere at this point, and there's some question about whether or not those funds can be used on an actual solar project, whether or not it qualifies. The one on the planned expenditures that we need to get clarification on is there is a possibility that the Greater Cincinnati Water Works is going to go ahead and take care of the lead pipe abatements on the private side. So what we would consider doing is anybody who has already paid to have that done, we would use ARPA funding to reimburse them. And I think it's like one or two people at this point. But this money has to be spent by the end of 2023 and everything processed during 2024. Unfortunately, things like remodeling the kitchen, that does not qualify for ARPA funding. Now, it can qualify for revenue replacement. The only thing is we would have to justify where we lost revenue during the pandemic to be able to do that.
Quick question. Eric and I discussed this briefly, the LED street lighting. So Duke is wanting to do that because we talked about that a number of years ago. So Duke charges us to replace the lights, but then our charges go down, right? The billing, how do they do that?
So for the actual expenditure?
Yes,
So this is our cost
to replace
to
the lights
replace every light
with LED.
in the village.
Okay.
And it's even though it's Duke's equipment, we have to pay for it.
Yes,
So
they maintain it.
they mean correct.
Okay, so our savings is the monthly bill for energy consumed, which
And there's a
reduces
couple
significantly.
of different payment plans we can choose. So the numbers that we have for the actual expenditure were from 2021. We've reached out to them to see what the difference is in cost at this point.
Okay.
But if we decide to do, I think there was a 10-year option.
Yeah.
We can reduce our capital outlay up front, but then again, if we're getting a 70% return on investment at the end of the project and we have these funds, why wouldn't we just go ahead and pay for them?
Okay, I understand. Yeah, we just had a very short discussion about it, so, yeah. Now I get what's going on. Okay, perfect.
Makes sense. Any other questions on it?
So I would say that if there are projects that council members have an interest in trying to do, it's something that we can certainly vet against the qualifications of ARPA. I would say we at least have, I can't see that, 57,000 likely available, because I don't believe the solar campus project is going to qualify. And then we could have the additional $40,000 left from the abatement. One of the things that I know the mayor has wanted to do is to do bus stops in the village.
Mhm.
That would qualify under ARPA funding. There could be other things.
So one question about that would be, an item that's been brought up some on and off is having sidewalks on Englewood, or a sidewalk on Englewood. The one issue is on the Gulf Manor side, that's where all the utility poles are. So is there any ARPA funding for that kind of project that would allow?
That isn't.
That's like safety, that's safety kind of related.
So it allows for infrastructure. So when Amberley did, when they passed their resolution, is they moved everything over to their road fund because they didn't have road fund monies coming in. It would be difficult for us to be able to do that because we have a specific road levy.
Do what?
Mr. Council.
Oh, okay, need a motion to, I'll make it.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, then. We have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good job.
Hey,
Way to
30
go.
Finish the meeting on time.
Everybody,
Early.
early.
Significant.
Let's get the other one started.
and we're clear.